Annie Lennox's icy voice and striking image defined an entire era of music. But behind the polished music videos and global fame, Lennox was quietly falling apart. In her own words, she was emotionally exhausted and completely burned out from the relentless pace of fame. What really happened behind the scenes of one of the most iconic pop duos of all time? And why did Annie Lennox decide to walk away from the very machine she built? Annie Lennox was born in Aberdeen, Scotland in 1954. From an early age, she was drawn to music, studying flute and piano at the Royal Academy of Music in London. But the rigid world of classical music wasn't where her heart was. In the late 1970s, she met musician Dave Stewart, and their connection was immediate, not only musically, but also romantically. After a short-lived romantic relationship, the pair decided to focus on music, forming the band Eurythmics in 1980. The duo quickly carved out a unique sound that blended synth-pop with soulful vocals. Their 1983 single Sweet Dreams became a worldwide hit, launching them into superstardom almost overnight. Lennox's androgynous style, striking orange buzz cut, and haunting voice made her a cultural icon. Eurythmics followed their success with a string of hits, including Here Comes the Rain Again, Would I Lie to You, and There Must Be an Angel. But behind the glamour, Lennox struggled with the pressures of fame. She later reflected, "It was extraordinary, but I felt like I was living in a bubble. Everything was so intense, and I was constantly being pulled in every direction." The fame that made her an icon also left her deeply drained, both mentally and emotionally. The 1980s were a whirlwind for Lennox and Stewart. The Eurythmics toured constantly, recorded multiple albums, and became one of the most recognizable acts in the world. But the fast-paced lifestyle came at a cost. Lennox's relationship with Stewart had ended romantically, yet they remained a creative duo, a dynamic she later admitted was both wonderful and intense. As their fame grew, Lennox began feeling isolated and trapped. In interviews, she admitted that the relentless cycle of touring and promoting music took a heavy toll on her mental health. "I felt completely exhausted," she said. "I had to keep performing, keep smiling, but inside I was empty." By the late 1980s, she was struggling with severe burnout, and the pressure to maintain Eurythmics' success felt overwhelming. The emotional strain began to show, and Lennox started questioning her place in the music industry. Though she loved music, she began to resent the machine behind it. The constant media attention, the lack of privacy, and the pressure to stay relevant. Friends and collaborators noticed a growing sense of detachment in Lennox, who often spoke of longing for peace and normalcy. By the time the band released We Two Are One in 1989, Lennox was considering stepping away from Eurythmics altogether, a shocking thought for someone at the top of their game. Born in Aberdeen, Scotland in 1954, Annie Lennox's journey into music was anything but typical. From a young age, she displayed a remarkable musical talent, mastering the flute and piano, and later studying at the prestigious Royal Academy of Music in London. Despite her classical training, Lennox felt out of place in the Academy's rigid environment and was drawn to the raw energy of pop and rock music emerging in the late 1970s. Her path crossed with Dave Stewart's when they formed the new wave group The Tourists. But it wasn't until they reinvented themselves as Eurythmics in 1980 that magic truly happened. Their minimalist yet innovative sound combined with Lennox's powerful androgynous image turned them into global icons. With their breakout hit Sweet Dreams, Are Made of This, in 1983, Lennox's striking orange buzz cut and commanding stage presence became a symbol of 80s pop culture. Throughout the decade, they released a string of critically acclaimed albums, each blending soul, synthpop, and rock in groundbreaking ways. Yet behind the scenes, the duo's artistic chemistry was also a source of tension. Both Lennox and Stewart were perfectionists, pushing each other creatively, but often at the expense of their own mental and emotional well-being. Lennox later described those years as a blur, filled with hotel rooms, interviews, and flights, leaving little time for reflection or rest. The demands of fame would eventually force her to reconsider her priorities, setting the stage for the shocking decision to step away at the height of her career. Taking a step back from Eurythmics allowed Lennox to rediscover herself creatively. In 1992, she released her debut solo album, Diva, which was a critical and commercial success. The record showcased a more mature and introspective side of Lennox, earning her multiple awards, including a Grammy for Best Female Pop Vocal Performance for No More I Love Yous. Lennox's reinvention wasn't just musical, it was deeply personal. She described her solo career as a process of healing after years of emotional exhaustion. Lennox no longer felt pressured to maintain the pop image of the 1980s and instead embraced a more authentic version of herself. Meanwhile, Eurythmics' music continued to resonate with fans worldwide, proving that their impact had transcended their active years. By stepping away, Lennox had actually cemented her legend, showing the world that her artistry went beyond the flashy visuals and catchy hooks that first made her famous. The hiatus was a bold move, but it ultimately elevated Annie Lennox's status as one of music's most respected artists. Fans initially mourned the absence of Eurythmics, but her solo work proved that Lennox's artistry could stand entirely on its own. Critics praised Diva as a masterpiece, and Lennox began earning recognition not just as a pop star, but as a deeply expressive songwriter and performer. In 1999, Lennox and Stewart briefly reunited for the album Peace, a project that reflected their personal and creative growth. While it didn't reach the commercial heights of their 80s hits, it showcased a maturity that resonated with longtime fans. Their music, once a soundtrack to an era of excess, now felt like a statement of endurance. The music industry began to see Lennox as a trailblazer, a woman who refused to be consumed by fame. Her decision to step away at her peak became a powerful example of self-preservation. Rather than burning out completely, Lennox returned on her own terms, proving that longevity in music is often tied to personal well-being. Today, Annie Lennox reflects on the decision to take a break with no regret. In interviews, she has admitted that her health and happiness were at stake during those years. "I had to save myself. Fame is intoxicating, but it can also be toxic." Now in her 70s, Lennox is celebrated not only for her music, but for her activism, philanthropy, and honesty about mental health struggles in the music industry. Eurythmics' induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2022 reminded fans and critics of their enduring legacy, a duo that pushed creative boundaries and reshaped pop music. Though Lennox's solo career flourished, she often describes Eurythmics as a defining chapter of her life, one filled with passion, intensity, and, ultimately, necessary pauses. By stepping away when she did, she preserved not only her mental health, but the mystique of one of the most iconic duos in music history. Annie Lennox's story is one of courage. The courage to walk away at the height of fame and the strength to return as an even more powerful artist. Her honesty about burnout and mental health shows that even legends need time to heal. Thanks for watching. Click here to check another video and make sure to subscribe to our channel.